Good morning, everyone. This is Juan. I know that this is Darren Lees there as the presenter, but I'm using Yozone from Darren Lees, who's the IT guy who set it up. Nevertheless, this is Juan, and I'm hearing more and more people joining in the training. So I think I may wait just a few more minutes before I start. Typically, the training lasts hopefully under an hour today. I have other meetings also that have been scheduled, but I will provide you. If not, I'm pretty sure your organization has probably already provided you with some documentation that you guys can read over. Hopefully you guys have had an opportunity to be able to read over through them, of course. The way we'll set up the meeting, very simple, is that we'll just go over really the application that you guys are going to be using in order to enroll people into the program. Questions and answers are available throughout the application. And also, obviously, you'll have somebody on staff that will be able to help you out. Most important thing, I think, is for you guys to look over the actual training package. And then, of course, also the enrollment screenshots are also pretty cool because they do give you a little bit detail as to what each section is and what you need to look at and look for and stuff like that. The training, the screenshots has changed just a little bit as far as like the actual title of the links, but it's self-explanatory. Before we had quote or client, now it's prospect or something like that. So you'll be able to read it through. It's pretty simple, but it does give you a lot of significant information, of course. So as we go through the presentation, I am going to be reading kind of off of the computer. I know that you guys may have a different type of presentation out there also, but again, it's just to kind of show you the flow of how to enroll somebody into the program. So I will go ahead. I sound like a pilot. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Juan Hernandez. That's funny. Somebody just wrote that, I guess. Eric wrote it. Thanks. Is that a good thing that I sound like a pilot, guy?
Yeah, it was all right. I'm sorry. I just had to say that.
You know, it's so funny. I've always joked around when it comes to that. It is recorded. It is a recording of an actual... Hold on a second. Somebody's writing things now.
Actually, Juan, if they want the recording for this, can they receive that? Or how would they go about that?
I can go ahead and record this conversation.
Okay. And then you could blast it out, I guess?
And I can blast it out. That is correct.
Okay.
All right, so I'll go ahead and record that conversation. It seems like some more people are arriving, or is this it? I got 14 people on the phone.
I think from our group, everyone's logged in.
Okay. Good.
I have a question.
This is Linda, and I've got 5 of us right here too, but we're all on our speaker one right here. Okay, so we're all listening and watching the same monitor.
Okay.
And this is Jerry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, and we have our guys here at Answer Center as well. With the video, will this be recorded? Is it going to have video as well? Or will you get a recording of your voice?
This will start to record everything, the voice and the video screenshots that I have. So I'm going to record it right now. We are working on an actual professional video for training and monitoring, for training, Hopefully it'll be done within now probably about 20 days. It was about 30 days. And then we'll answer every single person. But I can record this one. The only thing about it is that you really don't want to hear my voice that entire time over and over again. And I'm all over the place sometimes. So you'll hear my corny jokes, and of course you'll hear me talk about how Germany, the number 1 team in the world, just won the World Cup, which is my team ever since I was born. And I'm ecstatic about that. And that's really it. So you'll hear me say that a lot throughout this whole conversation. But nevertheless, once I finish my quick presentation, which is never quick with me, I always try to do that, about how to enroll somebody in the program, then obviously we can go to questions and answers. Most people that I've had in the past usually just type them in the little chat section. We'll answer as many as I can. The only thing that I ask from everybody is to please put your mics on mute or whatever it is. So then this way, there's no interruptions for any of the other people listening from another remote area, excuse me. So, all right. And then that, just let me get a cup of water because I've been in meetings all morning, and if not, I'm not going to be able to talk halfway through this presentation. Give me 1 second, guys. All right, gentlemen, ladies, everyone, I am back, and I'm going to go ahead and get started very, very quickly. I am going to go through this presentation a little bit quicker than most that I usually go through. My kids are actually going out of town, and I'm not recording this conversation yet, and so I need to make sure that I talk to them, I guess, before they get on the flight. In addition to that, though, I have other meetings scheduled. Just give me 1 second. All right, so everybody, I'm sure, and if you guys don't have this, of course, please, I'll give you my email at the end of the conversation. I'll put it up on the screen, and I obviously emailed a few individuals so you guys can actually respond to it. But this is a very, very useful tool to have to kind of learn on your own, read it through. That tells you some information about who we are, qualifications for FSLS, student loans and what they are, eligible student loans for consolidations, there's some cheat sheets, department applications, repayment plans, which is obviously what you guys are going to be studying throughout this whole entire program, the information that we require in order for an application to be sent out. There's questions and answers, of course, and there's a whole bunch of definitions in there also. And it's a pretty useful tool or training package to have. Read it through at your own leisure time. A lot of it is also intended for like a supervisor or the main salesperson and whatever, in your organization that you guys can refer to. This one over here is kind of screenshots of what we're going to be kind of going over. Obviously, you can't see it here because it's in the computer, but you will be able to see it once you print it out in your section over there. It's a pretty great, useful tool. Tells you what each section means, what it represents, what needs to be done in that place, and so on. Probably the biggest one that you'll be focused on is going to be when you access the PIN, and which we're going to get into that in a couple of minutes here, which is obviously a 4-digit PIN that's given to customers or students on the from the Department of Education in order to access their loans and also to get a quote. This sheet, right, that you see in front of you is probably going to be one of the most important things to have because this is the first obstacle that you're going to need because you can't get any further if you're not able to actually get the PIN from the customer. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start where everybody should go. First and foremost, obviously, you'll go to federalstudentloanservices.com. I'm sure that your supervisors, managers, whomever might have already given you some credentials to be able to log in. I'm going to log in as one of your administrators that I know from your organization, just to kind of show you what each thing means that you're seeing in front of you, of course. And this is your dashboard. I'm logged in as Gerardo Perez. Obviously, he can log in. He can always get back to his dashboard and stuff like that. There are a couple of things that you guys should be focused on at the top of the screen. Number one is pending. Pending is, we'll start off with the actually easy ones at this particular time. We'll start off with FAQ, frequently asked questions. These are some of the questions that you may hear when you're on the phone with some of the customers. We encourage you to read it through and what it is, and they'll ask you these questions. What company are you with? What is the student loan? What if the student loan is a default? Should I consolidate my loans? All different types of stuff. So just read that through. It's pretty simple. There's also an FYI, for your information is what we call it. Just a little cheat sheet. You may hear some of these things as customers are talking to you. So it's just important to kind of have them at the top, at the top of your head, I guess. But it's just there for your information. Agents is a pretty simple one. This is usually done by the manager. These are all the agents that are enrolled so far that can participate in selling this product or at least accessing this application. Reports is more for managers and supervisors. We can see who has joined the program. We can do it by agents, date ranges. We can search people's last name. So this is more for the actual supervisors and managers of the organization. And of course, there's also a payment history. That's obviously the different types of payments that are being dispersed out to different organizations. The two that we're going to be focusing on, and the two that you're going to be most likely in the vast majority of the time, is in the pending section and your new prospect. That's when you get a brand new phone call coming into you or you're speaking to a new potential client, you're going to be clicking on new prospect. And there's a whole presentation that's going to be in there, which we're going to be going over in a few seconds. The pending section of the student loan, of the application, is essentially where you're going to be able to access the people that you are communicating with, people that you have created a file. In other words, they've called you in and they said, hey, I need to know what's going on with your organization. Can you give me a quote? You'll take a name and a phone number. You'll give them a quote, and that information is saved in here. If you don't do a sale that first time around, then obviously when they do call you back or when you do reach them, you can access their information so you can proceed from where you left off in the last place. You can do a search by last name. You can do a search by last name and first name. Very user-friendly. You only have to put, I want to see all the people that's last name starts with an S. Click on display, and you'll be able to see all those individuals, of course. There's a status section for every single one of them. I'm going to go over what all these statuses mean in a few minutes once I go over the actual presentation of a new prospect. I also apologize for my voice. I'm highly allergic, unfortunately, to many things. And right now I sound very nasally. So if it's annoying, so, oh well. You're going to have to deal with it, I guess, for a couple of more, hopefully for about a half an hour or so. Also, the whole thing about this system in the pending section, and we're going to go over some of the user-friendly things that it has. You'll click on the name, lets you log into the file. There's a note section for the file. Managers have the ability to transfer clients from one sales rep to another sales rep. If for some reason that sales rep is not in this project anymore. And of course, there's also the capability of throwing out the, deleting the files if you're not working them. Because obviously after you've been working many, many files, the list can get very, very long. So the right thing about this application, the CRM, whatever you want to call it, this proprietary software system that we built, is that it is extremely, extremely user-friendly. You just have to do what's in front of you. It asks you questions, and you just kind of go forward with it. There's no complication on it. It's not, you don't have to learn how to, manipulate, let's say like a Microsoft Excel or something like that and everything about it. Here is pretty simple. It's create a file, get a quote, and send out an application to the clients and have them, of course, sign it. And we'll go through that whole entire process. But just to get started, I'm going to get out of this system and actual in-house sales process that we have. So there's going to be this up at the top menu, because this is obviously for all the resellers that are selling for us outside of our organization. But for the most part, we'll be focusing on just two of them, which is the new prospect and pending section of this. So give me 1 second, guys. All right, I'm going to log in as our security test. Can you please put your mic on mute?
It's Olive, right?
Somebody just came in and they don't have their mic on mute.
Hold on, I'll reach out.
Okay, perfect. All right, guys, so we're getting back into the, so we're back in the sales process. As you can see, just a little bit of a different things, but we have your pending and your new prospects and your FAQ, FYIs. We have some other things in here that, of course, they have that you guys don't have access to, but that's just because it's our in-house sales process. We get leads transferred to us, live leads and transfer leads, and this is where they come. So this is the only differences between our organization and your organization, I guess. The one we're going to be focusing on, number one, is going to be new prospect. So when you get a new call that comes in, there's a presentation that pops up. You guys have a different types of presentation, I believe. This is a recommended presentation. You can read it through, but of course, this is just a simple presentation that we have. So it says, thank you for calling Federal Student Loan Services. My name is Juan. Are you calling to lower your monthly payments with your student loans? Which is a great introduction. We've tested this, I don't know, so many different ways with so many different organizations. We always like to get a yes right from the get-go. And for the most part, everybody's contacting us based on the different types of marketing and advertising things that we're doing. Then, it's usually, well, of course I want to lower my monthly payments with my student loans because I'm having financial difficulty making those payments and stuff like that. Sometimes you'll get, if a client call, is this Sally Mae? Sally Mae is the biggest servicer for federal student loan debts. They're the ones that handle all the back end and the payment distribution to each one of the different types of student loans that have been taken out. So all of our advertising that we have out there typically has this type of, this question comes up significantly amount of times. So we have a little thing that we wrote in here, of course, which says we're Federal Student Loan Services. We provide a service to help individuals lower their standard monthly payments by consolidating their federal student loans. We specialize in working directly with Sally Mae and the Department of Education and help facilitate the process of consolidating your student loans with the DOE on your behalf. Before I can determine if you are even eligible for this program, I need to ask you a few basic questions to see if you qualify for it. So this is a good, I guess, little rebuttal that we've put that allows the salesperson to take control of the conversation and move forward. As anyone knows, of course, in sales is to keep things very simple, but also to take control of the conversation and follow a very a good process from point A to point B in order to make the sales. So in this case, we are now just starting off with your first name. I'll use a fictitious name in here. We'll use Brian Test. And if I can actually type, would be really nice. And of course, in a phone number. And at this moment, by putting in this phone number, what you're doing is you're creating a file for the person once you hit on the continue button at the end. So a couple of qualifying questions that we have in here. And the package that you guys will have, of course, will give you all of the qualifications for who qualifies for the program and who doesn't. This is just kind of a general one. The prospect cannot be enrolled in school. The prospect must be having some type of financial difficulty, and the prospect, these two kind of go hand in hand together. The prospect must not have received a letter for intent to garnish, or they cannot be in garnishment at this particular time. These are typically the main things that we, for qualifying in federal student loans. Other one that I haven't written in here, but is of course private student loans. We don't do private student loans. They have to be a federal student loan. There's so few private student loans that you may come across that from time to time. As you're trying to do a quote, you're just not going to find any loans. Most likely that individual has private student loans. The reason I don't put it in here, though, and the reason I talk about it most of the times is because consumers, or students, as I like to call them, these prospects, they think that they're private because they went to a local bank, or, the originator was a weird name, and they don't see federal student loan anywhere across from it. So that question, even though we ask, is just to kind of get the idea, the mentality of where they think they got their loans from. At the end of the day, the main objective when we're doing the pre-qualifications and just asking some questions to kind of get some rapport going with the client is really just to get some rapport going with the consumer. The main thing is always to pull their loans. All of this information is just to gather all of these questions and everything that you're giving them is just to gather some basic information, build a rapport for them, and then, of course, get them to that quote. You have to be able to pull those loans before you can do anything whatsoever. And for the most part, most people that are calling you understand this. They understand that I owe money, please pull my loans and tell me what my new quote is going to be or my new payment plan is going to be. So the first question is, what is the status of your federal student loans? Are they in repayment, deferment, or have you had your wages garnished? What's going on with them? It's to kind of get an open, communication, maybe make some notes on the side as to how they feel and what's going on with them. Are you having difficulty making your standard monthly payments? Most likely it's going to be yes, again. Are you out of school? Most likely it's going to be yes, again. Do you owe more than $10,000 in federal student loans? The average student loan debt right now in the United States is about $25,000, so that most likely is going to be yes. Are your loans federal student loans? They most likely will say yes, and even if they say, I'm not really sure, I think they're private, most likely they're going to be federal student loans. At the end of the day, you want to go ahead and get them going. Are you in garnishment, or you have received a letter to intent to garnish? Unfortunately, this is the main this question at this moment. Some people have changed it to the top of the list. I usually like to start a little open forum with the customer before I kind of just throw them out. But this question, if they say yes to any of these two, then unfortunately we will not be able to help them consolidate their federal student loans and put them on a new repayment plan. So if they received a letter, if they are getting garnished, everybody knows when money is being taken away from their check. Or if they received a letter to intent to garnish, typically it takes within 30 days, and within 30 days they're getting their money, they're getting their checks, their garnish. This whole process takes approximately 90 days from the time that you submit an application to the time that the Department of Education is paying off their loans and setting them up on a new repayment plan. So if they received a letter for intent to garnish, unfortunately, it's just not going to be in time for us to stop that. So at this moment, we're just not doing that as of right now. We do have something in place for the future, but at this moment, we're not. And when we do make any changes, of course, everybody in the entire team will be notified of it. So if you ask these questions and everything is going quite well, you'll say, hey, based on the information that you provided, it sounds like I can help you. But first, let me tell you who we are and how our services can help you. Again, my name is Juan. The name of the company is Federal Student Loan Services. We provide student loan consolidation, consulting, and document processing services on your behalf with the Department of Education. A few years ago, Congress passed a piece of legislation under the William D. Ford Act, which allows the Department of Education to consolidate your federal student loans. They will pay off all of your federal student loans and then consolidate into one affordable payment with one new loan from the DOE. There are 6 different repayment plans under the law, and each one has different benefits based on your financial situation. The good part is that these repayment plans are very flexible, and part of my job is to get your monthly payment as low as I can. In some cases, just as an example, I can get someone a payment of $0 Now, even though it is a payment of $0 under the law, it counts as a qualifying payment towards the forgiveness of any unpaid balances. What I can do for you is now give you a quote to see what your new lower monthly payment could be and all of its benefits, of course. So, little long sentence in there. A lot of the times is there for you more than anything else. The actual presenter understands what our services are doing, what types of benefits they can receive, understands that William D. Ford Act that came out a few years ago is allowing the population to get into these new different types of repayment plans. There are a total of 6 repayment plans. Our services right now are really offering 4 that you're going to be displayed, and really we're going to be focusing on 2 different types of repayment plans, which I'm going to go over very, very briefly as I do this presentation, of course. There are times that people do get a 0 payment, and that means that they're not falling behind. That means that they're not going to come after them. That means that they're not going to get on default. But of course, interest rates are still going to be accruing throughout that time. So the reason somebody will receive a 0 payment is just because they make such little income and they have too many dependents that the Department of Education is willing to not take any money for a year, so they can maybe breathe a little bit easier. And that's one thing I want to stress out about about our services and what types of benefits the customer is receiving. At the end of the day, what the customer is going to receive as a benefit from us or from consolidating, their federal student loans is, number one, is that they're getting themselves on a new repayment plan that is based on their income. The reason they're having financial difficulty is because the Department of Education, the servicers like Sally Mae, they say, you owe this much, this is what you're supposed to pay me, period. Hands down, they don't take anything into consideration. And since most people graduate with such large student loan debts and their income doesn't really equal to the amount of debt that they have, they're unable to afford the new monthly payment. So if your average person that comes out of college makes $27,000 a year, but they owe $25,000 in federal student loans, which most likely is a payment about $300, $400 a month around that area, somebody who's making $27,000 a year still has to pay for rent, maybe a vehicle, electric, their cell phones, which all these smartphones nowadays cost easily over $100, approximately $100 a month. They still got to go out, they still got to eat, they still have to have good times and stuff like that. So there's not enough money there that they're making in order to be able to meet all of their obligations on a monthly basis. And the student loan side of this is that it is very scary. So unlike, let's say, credit card debt, where there are a lot of consumer protection laws that protect them from credit card companies, banks, financial institutions, under the government here, because this is like the IRS to some degree, you owe them money, they have all the power to come after you. They'll garnish your wages immediately. They'll take away any tax refunds that you may have at the end of the year. You cannot file bankruptcy when you federal student loans. You can't file on them. They're going to be they're going to be with you until the day you die, essentially, of course. So really what I'm trying to say when it comes to all of that is that you actually have a very captured audience. Somebody's calling you in. Somebody's saying, I need help. I can't afford this monthly payment. You are the only one that has a solution for this individual. They can't go anywhere else unless they win the lottery and unless somebody's willing to give them extra money in order to meet this obligation. You, as salespeople, as an organization, as us, we have an actual solution for them. And that's why it's such an easy sale if you just keep it simple. I have debts. I don't know what to do. You have the solution for them. But the only way you're going to be able to get that solution is if you get to the quote section. So you start off with your presentation very quickly. You're in the intro section up here, as you can see. Okay. You're going to go ahead and click on continue once you've given them that information, because you're going to get them to get the quote. And all of a sudden you'll see that the menu has changed up there. The menu consists of 4 sections. Your introductions, which we just went into. You're going to have your quote section, which you're going to have to gather some information before you could give the customer a quote. You've got your prospect information, which is what you're going to have to gather if the quote that came back is nice, beautiful, sufficient, they love it, they our consolidation services. And then, of course, you got to send out the contract to them. And this is the section where you'll be sending out the contract. The computer knows if there's anything missing. Obviously, since this is a test file, it's saying, I cannot send out this contract because you're missing all of this information, of course. But we're going to go ahead and actually go to a live client so then we can start from the introduction, the quotes, and move forward from there. As you see what I'm doing right now, I'm just bringing up some sent contracts. I'm looking up in the pending section, looking at one of my counselors. One of the statuses that we have here says pending agreement signature. That means that she sent out some contracts. I'm clicking on those. I'm logging in. And so now I'm actually looking at an actual live customer, and I'm going to start again from the introduction so we can start from the beginning. Introduction of this customer was really nice. This is one from our website. Call came in. They did an introduction, told them everything about the services. They say, okay, I want to get to your quote section. They get to the quote section. Quote section here is what they're going to do is their last name, the date of birth, home phone number, social security, their PIN. The PIN is a 4-digit code that is given to every single student that actually takes out student loans. There's somebody that just joined the program. Can you please put your phones on mute? Or your mics? Okay, perfect. All right. So this is the one section that I kept talking about that is important. Most people, I would say about 60%, over 50%, maybe 70% of the individuals will know what their 4-digit PIN is that has been assigned by the Department of Education. This 4-digit PIN is what allows consumers to be able to view what loans they owe. As I mentioned before in the training package, if it gives you specific instruction as what to do when you're accessing that PIN. So retrieving a PIN or applying for a PIN, one of these two things. I definitely recommend everybody to have this by their side, in their cubicle, wherever they're sitting at, to print out this section, because this is an important one. Once or twice, maybe 3 times when you do it, different scenarios, you'll most likely get you'll get the gist of it, because it is quite simple. But this is definitely something important to have at the beginning as you start to take, new applications and stuff like that, or giving quotes. If for some reason the customer does not know their PIN, you can look up their PIN. There's a link there that actually brings you to the Department of Education's website. You're entering their Social Security, you're entering the first 2 letters of the last name and their date of birth. You'll submit that question. Then there's going to be a subsequent question that would ask, what's your mother's maiden name? What's your favorite color? I would say that 99.9% of the individuals that I have spoken to always know the answer to it. And then it'll tell you to this, what would you like me to do? Would you like me to email you your PIN, or would you like me to display it on the computer screen? You say display it on the computer screen, and you just put it in there. If for some reason they don't remember what their PIN is, if they don't remember anything, and you can't look it up and we haven't found it, then unfortunately you're going to have to apply for a PIN. When you apply for the PIN, you just follow all the prompts, all the questions, Social Security, re-enter, first name, last name, and all of this information here. The great thing about it is that at the end of this section, you actually get to choose what PIN you're going to be using for the customer going further. I usually ask the customer, what would you like your 4-digit PIN to be? Most people like to choose the date that they were born on, the year that they were born on. So this person was born in 1988, that may be their new PIN. They may tell you something else. Whatever they tell you, obviously, is what you would use for them. The good thing about it is that you can go ahead, if you know that it's 1948, or in this example it is 9543, then you would just write it in here. The bad thing is that it takes 48 hours, and that's 48 business hours, for that PIN to be activated before you can pull the loans. So as of right now, you can obviously continue to build rapport with them. You can continue to tell them that, this is going to be a great thing for them because there are different types of repayment plans. But unfortunately, you can't really go forward with a quote because you're not able to pull their PINs for them. So for the most part, it's important to try to look up the PIN first before you go this route, because you want to try to make a sale as you have them on the phone call. Okay, so now after that, what state do they live in? Family size. Family size is the dependents that they put, including themselves, in their taxes every year. So if I'm at home and I have 2 kids and I'm alone, then the total will be 3, because it's not just myself, it's also my 2 children. You would put 3 in here. Marital status, single or married, head of household, yes or no, and the approximate adjusted gross income. This is a live client, by the way, guys, and I want to show you some pretty big examples here. This person only makes $12,000 a year here in the United States. Pretty low amount of income, of course. So most likely this guy will qualify for a 0 payment. I know he will qualify for a 0 payment under one of the different repayment plans that are out there. If for some reason he is married, then additional questions will come in. If they do find the taxes jointly, some additional questions will come in. Just follow the prompts. What's the adjusted gross income of the spouse, and what's the spouse's total indebtedness? Now remember, guys, this is only to do with student loans. This has nothing to do with any of their other debt. The Department of Education, the federal government, does not care about what your car is, what your mortgage payment is, what your electric, your cell phone is. They're only interested in giving you a repayment plan based on your student loan debt, your income, and the family size. If your spouse is in it, of course, then obviously we have to take her income into account. And then, of course, we'll take into account what your spouse's total debt is with student loans. So this is only to do with student loans. This person is single, head of household, $12,000 a year as a gross income. Once you put all this information in, you'll be able to update it, and you'll see that there's a link up here that allows you to say, okay, pull my loans. You'll click on the link. It'll take a few seconds, and then the loans are pulled. So for Brandy Atkinson, who for $12,000 income, this person owes $19,000 in student loans. A couple of questions that have come up here. Direct Stafford loans unsubsidized, direct Stafford loans unsubsidized, and so on and so on. These are all the different types of different loans that are out there. The system that you're using here to give a quote is intelligent. It knows what qualifies for consolidation with the Department of Education with the different types of repayment plans. In the training package that you have in front of you, it's going to tell you a bunch of eligible loans for consolidation, the subsidized loans and the unsubsidized loans. This can become quite overwhelming when they first read this, and they say, well, do I really need to know all of this information? The answer is no, of course, because the system does all the thinking for you guys. So we're always on top of this to make sure that we understand what qualifies for the different types of repayment plans. We also have a plan reference chart. It kind of puts it out. It says, under this repayment plan, the IBR, the ICR, the standard, the graduated, these are all the different types of loans in this column. And it's X'd out to show you which ones do qualify for it. And of course, a little disclosure at the bottom. Again, you don't have to memorize it. You'll hear some of these terminologies over and over again. But the system, again, is intelligent enough for you guys to be able to see it. So this person is in default. Again, when a person goes into default means that the customer has not made payments with the Department of Education or to the servicer like Sallie Mae or Nelnet, some of these other companies that handle all these things, for over 270 days. The DOE does not consider you in default until you have made no payments for 270 days. That's 9 months. After 9 months is when potentially proceedings for garnishments will begin. So this person is definitely in a situation that they may receive their letter for intent to garnish. So if that's the case, we will not be able to consolidate them. So in this case, you just click on no, which I'm pretty sure is what happened with this client. The total debt is $19,653, and you have 6 student loans that qualify for consolidation. And let's see what type of repayment plans are available for you. So in this case, that's basically what I would tell the client. Wow, I see that you owe, $19,653. It seems that you have a total of 6 student loans, and you've gone into default with some of these student loans. Let me ask you a question, Brandy. Have you received any letter to garnish your wages, or are your wages being garnished? Obviously, you already determined this from the initial conversation, but you might want to reiterate it at this particular time. Also, as a sales technique, because you're reminding them your wages will be garnished. I'm seeing this in my screen as of right now that you're in default, and this could potentially happen. And you don't want to have your wages garnished since you're already making so little money. I think that I might be able to put you on a repayment plan that could stop those proceedings from happening, and you may not have to make a payment for the next year for, we'll put you at $0. In other words, they won't ask you for anything. Unfortunately, interest rates are still going to accrue. You're going to owe more money at the end of the year, at the end of the day, I should say. But nevertheless, this program is not here to settle on these student loans. We just can't settle on it. We're not here to lower interest rates. We're not here to do some miraculous thing that's going to make this whole entire thing disappear. Federal Student Loan Services, the Department of Education, is saying you're going to owe more money at the end of the year or at the end of the time of this program, but you need to live today. So we'll put you on a repayment plan that we're not asking you for $250, $300 a month because you owe $19,000 in student loan payments. So now you'll click on Get Quotes. It takes a few seconds for that to come up. Just kind of a recap of the $12,000, head of household, marry, and of course the different types of repayment plans that they're eligible for the customer. So in this case, there's the standard repayment plan, which is $179. This client is probably the DOE is asking them for about $200, around that area. They usually want about 1%, 1.5%, depending on the debt amount. So they can't afford $200. I mean, that's probably what they're breaking home every single week. There's the graduated plan. Graduated plan is okay. It starts at $120, but every 2 years it starts to increase to $137, and it goes on, as you can see when you hover over that little icon there. Then there's the income contingency repayment plan, which is obviously based on their income, based on the different types of student loans, based on the family size. And in this case, they only want $5.50 every single month. Or the income-based repayment plan, which is, again, based on their income, but different types of formulas. And in this case, they are willing to not accept any payment from Brandy for the next year. And any of these two bottom repayment plans, the income contingency and the income-based repayment plan, is based on the different types of student loans, qualifies for a forgiveness program that the government has in place. What the forgiveness program says is that if you have student loans and you consolidated under the William D. Ford Act and you come into these two qualifying repayment plans, after 25 years of making payments on your loans, we'll forgive any remaining balance that hasn't been paid. We'll basically just say, don't worry about it. You're done. 25 years is a very, very long time, of course, for $19,000. But you'll have clients that owe $250,000, $300,000 in student loans, and they just don't have the money to be able to pay it, of course. So that's a good thing. So even though they're not making any payment, let's say for the next year, it's still going to qualify towards that 25-year forgiveness program. Once you feel comfortable that this is the one that you want to offer the customer, which, by the way, I will always focus on these two, and I will always focus, number one, on the income-based one, then we'll go ahead and click on the radio button, and you'll submit the plan. So now it's going to take you from your introduction, which you already did. You've done your quote to pull the loans, and now you go into the prospect section, and it's automatically going to take you into the student loan information from when you chose the repayment plan. It's going to automatically fill in the amount of money that they owe, the total number of loans. You're going to choose what status they're in. Even though it says defaulted here, this is something that you have to choose. If one account is on default, then you choose it as defaulted. If they're in requirements or other things, then you can choose it in multiple statuses. We like to know when a customer is in default because we take immediate actions in the back end and the support that we do for our underwriting to get these things consolidated for them before the Department of Education potentially sends them a letter of intent to garnish. We ask them how much payments they were making per month. Obviously, this person hasn't been making any payments per month, and the selected repayment plan gets automatically put in, and the selected estimated monthly payment gets automatically put in. From there, you have a presentation for the customer to read for them, to let them know, what their new payment is going to be. And of course, at the other section here, you'll tell them about our fees. So based on the information, I see that you qualify for several programs. The programs that I recommend is the income-based repayment plan. That's the IBR. The repayment plan bases your monthly payment on your yearly income. It was designed to make repaying your loans easier. Now, each year, your monthly payments will be recalculated based on your annual income and the family size. Once you're approved, the DOE will pay off all of your existing federal student loans, and you will only have one monthly payment, which you can pay directly to the DOE. Your payment on the IBR program, is going to be $0 for the next year. The Department of Education will not require any payment from you, and that will stop any potential garnishment proceedings. That will definitely get you back on track, and so on and so on. You can make all the little, add things in there, of course. And the best thing of the program is that after 300 consecutive payments of any balance that is remaining will be forgiven. That's all part of the forgiveness program. Then you can go into, we have an initial processing fee to enroll in this consolidation program. Our program includes a fee of the consolidation document processing of $5.95 or 1% of the loan, whichever is greater, not to exceed $9.95, plus a monthly service fee to maintain the status in the chosen repayment plan, which is $30. So in your case, one-time processing fee will be $5.95, and your monthly service fee will be $39 a month. We oversee your account for the entire life of the student loans. If you need any help to postpone your payment, we can change the date, so on and so on. Of course, all the information is in there. So that's typically at this point is where you're selling them. And if they agree to go forward, which I don't see why not, because they have no other choices, of course, then you will go ahead and start to take the application. So we are now in the new prospect introduction, quotes, prospect information. We've determined their new student loans, and now we're going to go ahead and get into taking all of the information on these tabs in order for you to send out a contract so the client hires us to help them put them in the new repayment plan, help them consolidate their student loans. One thing I want to reiterate when it comes from a sales perspective, you have to understand, number one, this is the solution for them. We've been doing this for quite some time. We're going to put them on a repayment plan that is available for them, that's based on their income. Obviously, you now know, and I'm pretty sure you were aware of it, that there's just no way of getting out of student loan debt. You can't file bankruptcy. They will garnish your wages. They will take your income tax returns. They don't care if you're in Social Security or disability. They'll take even a portion of that away from them. The way they look at it is our money, and we're backing this up, and you're not doing right, and you went to school, and all this other different types of stuff. The great thing about this new program under the William D. Ford Act is that they're not looking at credit. They're not looking to see if the person has perfect credit or what their bills are or anything like that. What the Department of Education is saying, hey, this person has 6 student loans. 6 student loans are showing on their credit reports. We all back them up. They're all backed up by the federal government, but this is what they have at this particular time. We are willing to write a check for the $19,653 to pay off all their student loans, put them all into one payment with us, and actually put them on a repayment plan that's actually affordable for them. It's a really good sales technique to tell them that, of course, because most people feel like, oh my gosh, I'm behind on them. I'm not going to be able to do anything. They just don't understand that this is something that the DOE is doing on their behalf because they want to get something and nothing at all, of course. But they will get something when they start garnishing people's wages. So getting back to this information, you're ready to go forward with them, and you start to take their name, phone number, email addresses. Some of the information will already be pre-populated from the time that you did the quotes. You'll take their references. This is required in order for us to do the consolidation process. It's required by the DOE. They want 2 references. They don't care if the references are family members, or friends or co-workers. They don't really care about that. They're only looking that the references don't live with the person who's doing the application, and that the two references don't live in the same household. So it doesn't matter where they come from, as long as they don't live with the applicant and the two references don't live together like a husband and wife. After that, you have your household information. Where does the person work? The employee phone number. We already captured how much their yearly income was. What tax return are we going to use for them? So we're trying to get them the lower possible payment. In some cases, we've had customers that 1 year they were making $70,000 a year, and then this year, because they got laid off or they started a new job, they're only making $20,000 a year. So in that case, the customer is not going to be able to afford a monthly payment from last year's tax return. So what we use is the current year pay stubs or other. So if that was the case for this person, you will click on that. But in this section is obviously last year's tax return. If there's no taxable income, then you will click on that box there. Family size, including yourself as claimed on the tax return. In this case, it's just one, single, filing jointly, no other information that's necessary there. The last section, of course, is how is this person going to pay us? Is this person going to, pay us by credit card or by ACH? ACH is where we automatically debit from their account. In this case, the person is doing their MasterCard account. Most likely is a debit account that comes out of their checking services, but this is the route that we took it, of course. The information here has to be accurate. Everything has to be put in place. MasterCard, credit card number, expiration date, and, of course, the security code. This person's fee, because they owe such little money, $12,000. Not that they don't owe little money, they make little money, I should say, $12,000 a year. I guess we lowered it from $595 to $495. The payment has been broken up into 3 payments because they can't afford to do that all at once. We will start the services from the first payment that we collect. If the person is at $165 on 8/8, we will go ahead and at that moment start the consolidation procedures with the Department of Education so we can avoid garnishments on the customer. We most likely also will contact this client after they've enrolled to see if they can even come up with the money a little bit sooner than August 8th, of course. And we take care of all of that. That's nothing for you guys, but we prefer for the fees to be collected, the first initial fee, if it has to be broken into 3 payments. We prefer for it to be collected in 2 weeks. And that's something also that's happening internally now across our, internally with our salespeople also, because we have noticed that the more out you take this, then the most likely the client is going to cancel the services, and the most likely no one is going to get paid. So it's better to collect something, at least the first initial fee, if it does get broken down, into at least within 2 weeks from the time that you're taking the application. One good thing that I usually use here is, our enrollment fee is $495. I can have this taken out in the next 2 weeks. What day would you like me to do it? Would you like me to do it by the 25th, the 2nd of each month, whatever it is? You put it in here. Most times the customer may say, I can't really afford it all at that particular time. Then I'll tell them, okay, well, we can break it into 2 payments. And can you tell me when, within the first one, the first 2 weeks, the second one within, let's say, 4 weeks or something like that. And then they'll say, well, yes, that's great, or no, I can't take it into that payment either. Can you do it in 3 payments? Then, of course, you say, look, I got to speak to my supervisor. It's all the sales techniques. I think I can extend this out a little bit, but you definitely have to get something in within the first 2 weeks. And obviously, you have the ability to do it up to 3 payments. The document processing fee for this client is $29, and each month we're going to debit on the 26th. You cannot use the 29th, the 30th, and the 31st as the dates for the monthly administrative, because not every month has 29 days. When you enter this information, you'll update it, and if everything looks great, you'll see a little thing that says payment information has been saved with a little check mark, which means that it's verified this credit card information and it's valid. We are not charging the account for the $165, first and foremost, because they don't want me to do it until August 8th. But second of all, we just don't have a signed contract with them. So this is just to validate the information. If the information was incorrect, you will receive some type of message here that says the credit card information that you enter is incorrect. Please re-enter it and click update again. correct account numbers or date of expiration, or maybe even the address, which usually looks at your zip code, you will receive some type of message there telling you what is wrong, and you need to re-verify all the information. So, again, introduction, quote, prospect information. Then, if they're ready to go, you go into client information, references, household, student, and payment information. And this person is ready to be sent our contract. Once you finish all of that, you're going to get to the closing. Congratulations. I will be sending your client agreement to get you started on our services. Keep in mind that we will not consolidate your student loans until the document processing fee is collected, of course. And again, we're starting to do that from the first payment. Now, in this case, we had multiple ways of delivering the contract. As of right now, the only way we're delivering the contract is through e-signature documents, e-documents. In other words, they sign it off. They're able to sign it on their computer, on their PDAs, on their laptops, on whatever they have. I have no idea all these new technologies out there, of course. They'll be able to sign that off right then and there, which is a great thing. We find out that when people do electronic signatures, you have a greater percent of them doing it than having to print out the paperwork and fax it back to us or scan it or something like that. A little bit of a closing here, which I'm not going to read. This is very boring. Basically just gives them step-by-step information on how to send it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to also show you what the customer is going to experience in signing the documents. So I will go back to my dashboard, back to pending. I'm going to go ahead and pull up a test prospect that has a pending agreement signature. And I'm going to do this test here. I'm going to log into the file. I see that my email is there. I'm going to closing, and I'm going to send it out to myself. When you send it out, the message will change, in a few seconds, which it should by now. Okay, it has been posted to Yozone, which is the services that we use for e-sign. I'll go to my email here. And this is the email that the customer will receive. Dear Test, Federal Student Loan Services has a consolidation agreement for you to complete. To process this document, please click here. So they'll click on that. New screens will come up. And it is extremely, extremely user-friendly. Very, very easy to use for the client. I mean, you don't even have to be on the phone with them. Usually I like to stay on the phone with them if they have like a smartphone or something like that. And just say, hey, just click on continue. Look down your information very quickly. Click on continue. Look down on the information really quickly and type in your name. In this case, we'll use test. Click on continue to review. It shows their signature, automatically date stamp, and of course the electronic signature process record. They'll submit that section. Then they have the whole contract to read through if they wish to, which nobody usually does. They'll type in their name. Click to review. They'll see that the date is in there, their signature and the electronic signature record. They'll submit it. Takes a few seconds after that, and it's done. They'll be able to view the document if they like, PDF online. They'll be able to do a whole bunch of things, but this whole process is completely 100% done for them. Okay, now we're going to get into FSLS, because now you've done your job to some degree. You went through your introduction. You went from new prospect, you went to your introduction. You were able to get the quotes on this individual. You now were able to sell them. So you took all of their information, and you sent out the document. So how do you know that this person has, first and foremost, signed the document? How do you know what to do from this point forward? I'm going to get into the pending section. And the way I'll explain that is in obviously the different statuses. The statuses are very self-explanatory, but this is a process that we have internally in how a sale is how a prospect becomes a client, and when do we consider it an actual client and not just a prospect for the time being. So when you just click on any name and you create documents without sending out any contracts, you'll see that the status bar here has the incomplete application. So that's this one. In other words, you haven't done anything. You created a name, a phone number. You're calling them back. you're going back and forth, whatever it may be. You may need to still pull their loans. Maybe they needed to apply for a new PIN because you couldn't pull their loan. Maybe they needed to talk to their uncles, their mothers, their spouse, whomever it might have been, or think about this. So at the end of the day, all you did was just able to get a name and a phone number, maybe an email address, and you're following up on them. The system also has a contact manager that allows you to set up a callback date and time, which I'll show you how to use that in a second. The next thing is that you did actually give somebody a quote, and you did sending them an application. So that's going to change. It's going to go from a incomplete, it's going to go out to a pending agreement signature. So in other words, we're waiting for the customer to sign the agreement. So in this case, this test application, you'll see that we have pending agreement signature. If I bring up some of my other staff, you'll see all the different pending agreement signatures that are out there for the salespeople that we have internally, of course. So they're there. Give me 1 second. They're there, obviously. That's the next status, excuse me. From there, if for some reason the client didn't sign everything, we have an incomplete agreement signature. In other words, they didn't sign the second signature. They only signed one of them. If that were the case, they will fall to this status, and you will go into the file, and there'll be notes in that file to say what happened, so you can contact the client and say, hey, you signed the first section, but you didn't sign the second section. This rarely ever happens, and part of the reason is because it's all electronic. The electronic signature does not become complete unless they sign both sections. So as you can see, even for all of our counselors, there's not one in that status. Once they've signed the document, we have a quality control department internally, which is the verification department. So anyone that has signed the documents, just as I showed you on the e-signature example, they're going to go into another status, which is pending verification approval. No one in the entire organization, every lead, every prospect, whatever you want to call them, every client, every student, they don't become a client of ours unless they go through the verification department. They have to be approved by the verification department in order for your organization, for you as an individual salesperson, to receive credit for this sale. So you've taken this, you've done your introduction, you've given them a quote, you've chosen a repayment plan, you've told them about our monthly fees and our enrollment fees and what's going to be happening over the next so many months, of course. That's all great, but it is our internal process. This is our quality control that has to actually re-verify all of that information. The verification process takes approximately 5 minutes because all they're doing is just verifying the information and recording the conversation. Very, very simple process. They say, okay, your name, your phone number, and so on. They have the capability of editing a significant amount of information. You know, maybe the address was mistyped. Maybe even their first name was mistyped. We have the ability to change that. They will reject files, though, if for some reason there's a complete misunderstanding from what the salesperson told them and what's in front of them in the contract. So some of the things that we would reject is, number one, we had spoken before, let's say the client makes $40,000 a year as opposed to $20,000 a year, which is what's in the contract. Well, in that case, the repayment plan is going to be much, much different, and our verification department is not there to resell the client on their new repayment plan that they have. That's obviously the process of the salesperson, and at that moment, what will happen is the next status is that it's rejected at verification. The verification will reject it. They will finish the whole verification to make sure that everything else is correct, but they will go ahead and reject it, and you'll be notified because of the statuses. So in this case, we have a couple of rejections. You'll be able to go into the file or click at the notes section, and you'll be able to see why the file was rejected. There's notes on this. And then you'll be able to contact the client and say, there might have been a misunderstanding. Maybe I mistold you something, but let's go over your application once again. And unfortunately, you will need to send out an application. You will need to send out an application again and have the data accurately in order for verification to make it go through. So it is important that as you're doing your applications, that you are very, very detail oriented, that you do ask the right questions. Again, I can change an address, a phone number, I can change many, many things, but I cannot change the miscommunication with the customer, especially related when it comes to their loan amounts and what they're supposed to be paying. They come in the program and we say, no, your payment is going to be $400 a month with us, through the student loans, and they were under the impression that it was only going to be $150. That's extremely difficult for us to overcome, of course. The other things that we may reject is also when they may not understand what the fee was. For some reason, you tell them it's $595, and they were like, I didn't think it was that high. I thought it was only $200 a month. I'm not paying that. Again, that file then will be rejected, and it will be up to the salesperson to contact the client again and make things right with them, of course. And there are a few times also, as you look at these statuses, that maybe the client is going through verification and they say, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to cancel with you guys. And so we'll be able to say cancel on verification. You'll still be notified. And, of course, it's up to the salesperson to contact the client and try to resell them again and try to get them, enrolled in the services. Now, the question that I get frequently is, how long does this whole entire process take? Let's say I get a phone call, I click on new prospect, I go through introduction, I give them a quote, I send out a contract, and after that, they have to speak to the verification department. So the point up to the point of sending out the contract, the electronic signature contract, I've seen it as little as like 15 minutes, 12 minutes, around that area, if everything is going smoothly, unlike this long conversation that I'm doing at this particular time. Because at the end of the day, people are calling in, they know what they need, they know that they're falling behind. You're reading this presentation really quickly to them. You're obviously getting to the quote section. That's your number one thing that you want to do. And if they agree with the quote, they agree with the fees that we charge, you're going to get to the closing and send out the contract. Usually about 15 minutes, depending how good of a typer you are and stuff like that. If everything is very smooth, of course, I would say approximately 15 minutes is what I'm averaging right now on sales for us to deliver a contract to the customer. After that, the verification is approximately 5 minutes is the average time, sometimes a little bit less and sometimes a little bit more with the client. But, that's all, of course, how good and the communication and the understanding of the customer feels that has, when they were being sold by the salesperson. What most of our in-house salespeople do, because it is such an easy process to sign the documents, is that they actually stay on the phone with the client. The one call close kind of thing. They start, they give them a quote, they send out a contract, and they say, okay, Mr. Jones, go ahead and get on your computer or go on your smartphone and sign the documents. I'll stay on the line with you, so then this way I can send you over to the verification department and to be able to verify your information. So what happens at that particular time, of course, is that this client goes on their laptop, their office computer, they sign the documents. We have a processing department that looks at the documents to make sure that everything is right, and the department is there waiting. So there may be, from the time that they sign the documents to the time that the verification department speaks to them, there may be a delay of approximately 3 minutes because the processing department, the ones that are actually looking at the e-sig documents, are downloading and uploading it into the client's files. But most salespeople don't mind staying on the phone because at the end of the day, they're going to get a sale right then and there. So 15 minutes for the sales, 3 minutes for processing the contract, and approximately 5 minutes more for getting the client signed. So with that being said, the whole thing can take about 25 minutes, I would say, from beginning to the time that a client becomes a client. If for some reason the client cannot stay on the phone, we encourage you guys to, of course, contact the client during our normal business hours of operations, which are Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., I should say, for the verification department to be available here for you guys. If you can contact them, don't worry about it. Our verification department is also contacting them at all hours out throughout the day, sending them emails to go ahead and get the verification done. But once again, we will not we will not activate an account, and we will not count it as a client until they go through our verification department. So the only other thing that I want to show you, which is more about the application itself, this process, is some of the other features that it has. In order to get into a file, again, you click on it. As you can see, it expands. You're under the pending. You use these little arrows like you're walking in through the door as you're walking into the file. We've got this little notepad with a pencil that allows you to take notes. So, for example, I want to add to the entry. I want to say client will sign doc in 2 hours, something like that, whatever it may be. Or if this was a prospect, you'll say, client or prospect, wanted to speak to spouse, maybe you want to put something in there that likes baseball, or I have no idea, anything that would give you some type of indicator to be able to continue building a rapport with the customer. You can obviously be in there. You can use different types of dispositions. You can say, I'm going to call this person back in 3 hours or 4 hours, or let's say on the 18th at 1 p.m. You'll confirm it, and you add it to the log. You'll also see any of the historical information in there. Like I showed you, you'll see all the other things that are in there, of course. And in this case, you'll see the one that I just put in, me, Juan Valladares, call back at that particular time. I added it to the log. When you go back into the pending section and you click on display, you'll see this one, July 18th at 1 p.m. And you can sort by the different columns yourself. This is just basically a contact manager, so you can manage your leads. You can contact people, see where they're at with them, and you'll go in and you'll be able to access that note-taking even from this point here. You don't have to go into the file. You can see, hey, I need to contact this person back, or they said they were going to sign the document by 2 p.m. or something like that, whatever it is. And that really, guys, is kind of, in a nutshell, about an hour's presentation here of what this application can do for you. Just as a recap, very, very simple, extremely, extremely simple. You have your FAQs, your FYI information. Your salespeople and managers have the ability to add salespeople, and there's the report section from the CRM. From there, you'll have your new prospects, which is how you start a new application or a new contract, new quote, if you want to call it. Read that information. And then, of course, you have your pending section, which is to manage all of your leads. I'll log into this person. When you do start, you'll have your introduction. Immediately, you want to get to a quote. That is your number one goal, to get into a quote, to pull this person's loan. If they are good, you have your prospect information, which is to basically send out a contract. So this way, they've hired us, FSLS, to be able to do the consolidation process of the new quote that you quoted them. You've got your closing, is where, of course, you'll be sending them out the contract. Once that happens, your statuses take over. There'll be pending agreement signature or pending verification. This is where you want to see all the time. So whenever you come into work, you want to follow up on the people who haven't signed. You want to follow up on the people who are pending verification. So that information would always be there. And then, of course, you got other little dispositions, maybe incomplete agreement signature. They didn't sign everything. Maybe they were rejected at verification. Something that I would check maybe twice a day, just so you know what the status is of your the files that you're working on. Once they do get approved, it's done. It's out of your system. You don't have access to it anymore. We take over. We do all the customer service, any updates. We have a whole retention department. We have a whole verification, not a verification. We have an entire huge, giant underwriting department. We have our billing department. We have everything to basically make the client's experiences quite simple with us. There's constant emails and communications that happens with them throughout the entire 90 days. And then, of course, we have an entire staff that after about 10 months for us to start the new process, the new renewal, because we have to update any differences in their income with the Department of Education to see if their repayment plan is going to change. So, of course, we have that all in place to be able to take care of them. From your perspective, if the client says, okay, well, how long is this going to take? We'll take an application with you immediately. When your first payment clears, we'll start the application process, and it usually takes up to 90 days before your loans are paid off by the Department of Education, and you're set up with the new servicer to manage that new consolidated loan, like a Sallie Mae or Now Net. So this whole process can take up to 90 days. But our trained, customer service underwriters will be in constant contact with you to help you throughout the entire process and make this as smooth and as simple as possible. That's it, guys. Any questions? Okay, so the first question is, after a $0 payment plan and the IBR, how much do they pay a month? Well, keep in mind, guys, that we personally have a monthly service fee for these services that has nothing to do with the Department of Education, the new consolidation loan, what their payment will be. So after a year, I don't know what their new payment is going to be because we have to redo the application. It is all based on their income. They may qualify again for another year of zero payments if their income hasn't increased. The example that we saw of $12,000, if for some reason they're only making $12,000 again, they may have a second year of zero payments. The Department of Education only allows up to 3 years of zero payments. But again, after the third year, they may ask for something very small, $10 or $20 a month, especially if the client's income has not increased. So it is all based on their income, of course. All right, let me see what the other one. Okay, yeah, we do get from time to time where clients have consolidated their student loans with the Department of Education in the past. They've also gone back to school and added new student loans. We have the capability of reconsolidating them. Now, the word consolidation is taking multiple things and putting them into one. In some cases, we only have one repayment loan in there, and what we're doing is putting that repayment loan into we're putting that federal student loan into a new repayment plan. So if somebody has consolidated in the past, we can still consolidate them and put them in a new repayment plan. Because again, at the end of the day, this is intended for them to actually have a lower monthly payment. Okay?
I got a question, sir.
Yes, sir.
When it says all other repayment plans, it says the best part of the program is after 300 consecutive payments, any balance that is remaining may be forgiven. How is the percentage of that is, it comes true?
All right. If I'm catching your...
Because it says that it may be forgiven. But
I'm sorry? Yes, that it may be forgiven. Okay, yeah. So if I'm catching your question correctly, of course, okay, first and foremost, may be forgiven. Nothing is ever 100% guaranteed, of course, in this world. And we don't want to make ourselves put in a situation that is, 100% that it's going to be forgiven. And please, can you put your phone on mute because I'm getting a lot of background noise.
Sure. Sorry.
No problem. Nevertheless, so the way that whole forgiveness program works is that 300 payments equals out to 25 years. Again, the first 3 years, if they don't have to make a payment, it still counts towards the 25 years or the 300 payments of the forgiveness program. They have to have qualifying federal student loans in order to qualify for that. They have to be in the right repayment plan for that in order to occur, of course. Our underwriters are the ones that will determine that they may or may not necessarily qualify for that. As an example, though, let's say that a person owes $50,000 in student loans. And I'm putting up a calculator here, as you can see in front of us. And if they owe $50,000 in student loans, and they only want a repayment plan because their income is just say $35,000 a year, which is an average, pretty decent income, maybe $40,000 a year. They want payments of $200 a month. If you multiply that times 300 payments, it's $60,000 that you're paying back. But throughout that time, that $50,000 in student loans could also they have interest rates. They have so many things that are accruing. So at the end of the day, 25 years, that person really most likely owed $80,000. $80,000 minus the $60,000 that you paid, there's $20,000 that are still pending there. So $20,000 is what the Department of Education will forgive. They'll say, okay, you still owe us $20,000 because of interest rates and so on and so on. We're going to go ahead and forgive that for you. At that moment, of course, that becomes the taxable income. That's when the IRS comes after that person and says, hey, the government forgave $20,000. We're going to tax you on that $20,000, and that's a whole new business, of course. But that's usually the way it works. I hope that I answered your question correctly. I don't know if you were focusing more on the may be forgiven as opposed to maybe a practical side of the way it works. Again, from our perspective, we don't guarantee anything because we're not 100% sure at that moment of what type of repayment plan they're getting into and the qualifications for each one. There are other things also in the forgiveness program that if they work for like the federal government, they're teachers for the state, these loans can be forgiven after 10 years. So that is all taken care of by our underwriting department. They give them a call, they contact them, they gather all the proper information in order to see what really their true qualifications are for the forgiveness program. Question in here
okay,
was...
thank you.
No problem, sir. Question in here was time frame for verification approval. I kind of went into that into some decent detail. The time frame for verification approval, if their client is on the phone, is about 5 minutes is the average time. Sometimes it can go up to 6 minutes. Sometimes I've seen as low as 4 minutes. And again, these are our stats. So verification is that fast. What will take longer is if we can get in contact with the client. So that's why most of the times I tell people that if the client can sign their contract right then and there over the phone, I'd rather be on the phone with them for an extra 10 minutes to transfer them over to the verification department, because at least this way the verification department can verify them right then and there, and the client, in the process will become a client. We cover all us. I don't know what that question is from Jonathan. Maybe there was a substantive question. May not shall. I don't know what that means. I'm just trying to look over the questions, guys, that are being written, or maybe you guys are having conversations. Okay, what if they ask for interest rates? That's a very, very good question. Again, this is not an interest reduction program. This is not a debt consolidation program or settlement program or anything like that. It is an answer within the package that we sent out to you, or that you should have. When it comes to the different types of repayment plans, you'll be able to see how the interest is calculated for the new clients that are coming in. And the way they do it is that they take the average weighted interest of each one of the individual loans. So maybe loan A could have an interest rate of 9.9%, and loan B could have an interest rate of 6%. Well, they add every single one of those together. They take the average weighted, and then they add 1/4 of a percentage to that. That's the way the interest rate is calculated. It is confusing enough. I don't think. I think you'll confuse some of the people in there. You can basically just say, look, they look at your interest rates and they average it out, and that's what your new interest rate is going to be. Again, the intent of this program is not to focus on the interest rates, which is still going to be very low. I mean, most likely it can go. I think Obama just passed something that says it can't go over 10%. I think he capped it off at 10%. Obviously pretty high when you're owed $50,000, $100,000, but that's the max that the interest rates can go out up to. When you look in the quote section, you'll see that, I'm going into the quote section, guys, very quickly. Give me 1 second. You'll see that we have an interest rate of 7.25 there. That's not what their interest rate is going to be. That is just an S. We always put that in there, so please do not quote that 7.25 because that's not going to happen. We have to look at each one of their student loans and look at what the average is, and it would be the weighted average plus 0.25 higher. Yes, you cover all of the United States. Got you, Jonathan. Sorry about that. Yes, it's only United States. We're only doing student loans, federal student loans for the U.S. So yes, as of right now, we're covering the entire United States. In my opinion, each call lasts approximately 15 minutes. You add verification and processing into that, it's about another 10 minutes. Question from Lynn is how long do we, suggest that we should spend on each prospect? That's really more of a sales question that I'm sure your manager will be able to stay there and tell you. You stay on the phone call, I guess, as long as you can in order to be able to be effective in your sales process. The simplicity is what is always there for me. You start off with your introduction, you read, you sell them, build a rapport. This can take you about 1 minute to 2 minutes, literally like 2 minutes can take you this section here. You take control of the conversation. It's all about sales, and you get them, pull this information, and you pull their loans for them. You get a quote, and you go to your prospect information, and you start to read to them what their new payment plan is going to be, and you close them on the new sales of what our fees are. And then from there, you obviously take all of the reference information and the household information. So, again, it's as long as you are in control of the conversation and you're building that rapport with them and you're making them feel comfortable and you're telling them that this is really some of the only options that you have, hopefully you'll be able to remain on the line with them, in a short period of time. Because it's pretty cut and dry. It's, you need help, we have the solution, let me pull your loans, this is what it is, this is what it's going to cost you, do you want it, yes or no, you go forward. Obviously, it's not that cold, there's building rapport, but it is the process, the flow of it is very, very simple. It doesn't necessarily, there are some things there that tells you what the total amount, the question says here, so at the end, does it give us the total amount? I'm assuming that that's the question based on how much money they're going to be paying back. It does not give you the total amount. It doesn't tell you exactly, what it's going to be, because again, this is just an estimate. It's calculating a 7.25% interest rate. The system does not have, the DOE, the information that they provide us, they don't have the interest rates that they're getting charged in each one of them. But we do find that out as their loans are getting paid off. Yeah, the references, guys, don't have to live together. So if you are a student and you want to put your parents as references, your parents still live together, you cannot do that. You can put one parent, but then you're going to have to find another reference that lives in a separate household. So the references cannot live with the person who's doing the application, and the reference sister, brother, anything you guys like. Still in celebration mode, guys, as you can see. Any other questions, guys?
Hello?
All right. Question that
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, sir. What's your question, if you have any?
No, I mean, it's not a question. It's just thank you for this training. It takes to around an hour, something like that. But it's pretty cool. And, well, I consider that we need only time because we're talking about maybe 3 days to get familiar with the system as well, right? So
Yeah.
That is my point of view, sir.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good point of view. You know, the system, again, is extremely simple. I think that most people who can use the internet, go on Facebook, you know, go through Google, do some research and things like that, will probably be able to catch and be pretty proficient, or at least effective, in manipulating the CRM. It's a pretty simple CRM. It's not that complicated, of course. I think where you need a little bit more time is fine-tuning the presentation to the customers that are calling in, you know, to the potential customers that are calling in. So that's where, you know, some role-playing takes place. You know, any good sales team, of course, of any call center, which I'm sure you guys have this more down-packed than I ever did. I'm more of an operations guy, do back-end stuff, fulfillment and things like that. I've done a lot of sales all my life, so I know a significant amount of sales techniques and every known sales strategy out there, of course, which I can sit down and probably have a 5-hour conversation with people when it comes to that. But, you know, in so many years of my experience, and I'm not an old person by any means, the most important thing is to keep it simple, very, very simple, and make sure that you don't deviate with from your road to success, from the road to getting the contract out to them, whatever it is. If you deviate too much from call to call because maybe it didn't work in one call, you know, people start to change the way they do things. Unfortunately, then it's just not going to work out well for them in the long run. So yeah, I would say you can learn this system in probably a half a day as far as the application is concerned, maybe an hour. But really, it's just getting familiarized and accustomed to every possible scenario that may come up. So 3 days of doing some role playing, or 1 day or 2 days, whatever your system is, will get you guys started right away. Another question that I have here from one of the other people who are attendees, I guess, is what about if the student lives with the parents and not working? His parents would have to pay? No, that's not the case, of course. That person doesn't have taxable income. That was one of the things here, is no taxable income, of course, for that individual. And hopefully he's filing single or independent himself, of course. So that person is, you know, the parents are not responsible for the kids' student loans. There are family student loans where parents co-sign the student loans. And then, yes, at that moment, the parents are responsible for that. But under the different types of repayment plans, what they're looking for is the actual person who actually took out the loans. But at the end of the day, in that case, the parents are not going to be responsible, at least in that scenario. You know, I know that questions may pop up, so I don't mind staying on the phone with you guys for maybe another 5 minutes. But then after that, I'm going to have to kind of cut it short. If there are any additional calls or additional questions, you know, I will encourage you guys to give me a